My brain says this, try this.
The St. Louis Cardinals don't know what an infield fly is, and I guarantee they know what an infield fly is.
And he struggled mightily, and I think that becomes an issue because now he's so criticized.
Talking
Overfluff.
over fluff. Too much fluff.
I think so.
Well, we're going to talk about it. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Hitting Zone podcast. That's where we take tough subjects, and we've been talking about some good ones lately, and we crush those out of the park. And if you like what we're doing, make sure you follow me. Make sure you follow this guy over here. I know you know who he is because I love having this guy on my show. You follow me on Instagram at _MTS Performance. I haven't been posting there lately, so make sure you go over to my TikTok, which is the Hitting Zone STL. You can also find us on X, which is Hitting Zone STL, capital HZSTL. Huge shout out Game 7 Baseball, Game7Baseball.com, and what they do here with Youth Baseball Midwest. I participate in their tournaments, have been for years. Dave and Dave are fantastic. Make sure you get out there, and if you got you're an organization guy or you're a small group, make sure that you reach out to them individually, see how they can do for you. Prime Sports Midwest, 3 locations. One is still closed out here in St. Peters. They're still dealing with it, so let's make sure we go to Fenton, Chesterfield, or online to get your gear. Team Store, I think you use their Team Store.
I do.
For your gear, we do as well. So make sure you go holler at those guys over there. YBM Club is live. It's been live, and we miss you. You need to tune in over there, sign up. And you can see some exclusive content over there, which has rankings, breakdowns, player spotlights, early access to other content that's coming out soon. And you can join. We extended that legacy member pricing, youthbaseballmidwest.com. Make sure you click the YBM Club tab to sign up. And don't forget that you have to hit that subscription and that dinger on the YouTube that you're watching, because you're watching it from one of our pages that we shared with you. So make sure that you are subscribing and the dinger, because you're not going to get notified when we have these great episodes.
Got to get notified.
Got to get notified, because we are talking about development here. And the last maybe 4 or 5 shows that I've done, we've been talking about a lot of development, something that you and I harp on a lot. We have different views on different things that are still kind of, they meld together, sure. Like the one-on-one versus group training versus long-term programming. I think there's a space for everything. And one of the things we haven't really talked about is what exactly is a development plan, or what we like to call IDPs, the individual development plan for an athlete, and what should parents, think, and athletes about that. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about today, is how do we get these athletes developed, and what is the plan? What is the long-term journey? Because, for you've dealt with everything from Little League all the way up to professional athletes.
Right.
And there's a development process that has to happen from that young age all the way up. And if we neglect that, we're probably going to miss out on some opportunities maybe somewhere down the road.
Yeah, I mean, it's all based on structure. I mean, everything starts with an assessment. You go from there, you see how they're moving, you get numbers, you get the video put in, and then you put a plan in place. You execute that plan. Each individual is going to be different, based on size, athletic ability, and you just you meld a program based on where they're at now and where we want them to be down the road.
What does that look like for you? Like, so when you get an athlete in, and you talk about assessments, that's the first thing we have to do, is go in and assess these athletes. And for you, you like the one-on-one structure. And I am not the biggest fan of one-on-one instruction. And I'll give you my background on why I feel this way. I deal with the majority of athletes that are like mid-level kids, right? Mm-hmm. That kind of like baseball. They're maybe their parent might be saying, my kid needs to learn how to hit. So that's the kind of group that I'm getting. And what I'm finding is the one-on-one instruction's not enough. And so instead of doing the one-on-ones with them, you have to build the program. It seems that the athletes that you work with, they're already in that mindset. They're developing a particular way, and you don't have to have those conversations or I know that you have to have conversations, but I feel like it's a little bit different for what I'm getting for the athletes and maybe what you have for your athletes. And you could tell me if I'm wrong. I'm sure you get all kinds of them, but for me, I like the development side of how to build the entire athlete from start to finish to make sure I see growth, which is to me development. How does that work for you with kind of being in that one-on-one setting and having such a large gap? How do you continue to develop with those athletes over time?
I like the personal connection. I like to, build relationships with them individually, but when I bring in people for an assessment initially, they, based on what their age level is and ability level is, most of the time their parent's going to be involved. The first thing they have to understand is why we are here. The parents are making a financial investment. They want to see an ROI, that return on investment, that they know structurally it's going to take time. It's going to be a process. So with them, getting them to understand and to buy in, to hold their self accountable for helping in the development. I'm only a part of the puzzle.
Right.
I'll write up the programs. I'll install the program. I will send drills on a weekly basis. We test, every 4 to 5 weeks after the initial assessment. If they're not bought in on that accountability and they think that I'm going to go in and perform a small miracle without their help and without them buying into this process, I'm no good for them. There's been numerous people that have come in, taken the assessment, and I've not heard back from them. There's way more people that I hear back from, but there's some people that's just not for them because they're not willing to invest that time. Well, then I'm not going to work for them because unless you hold them accountable, I'm not saying beating the brakes on them all the time to get stuff done, but if you're going to invest money, you have to understand that, what we do is not easy. You have to be very proficient in doing really good things. So, with that comes with an initial conversation before the, assessment even starts. Why are you here? What are you looking to get out of this? Am I going to be the right fit for you? 95% of the people think that I'm a good fit. The other 5% don't think I'm a good fit. That's fine. But I don't want people to come into my facility with a false sense of just because I'm coming to a professional that I'm going to get better. It's not that case.
Yeah, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit to make sure that I'm clear on kind of what I feel like one-on-one is as a blanket statement, I guess. Because when I hear what you're telling me is I'm hearing that you're programming athletes and they come to you for information. So you're giving them a outlook of what a 4-week plan looks like. I know that I'm using 4 weeks because that's in a month, right? So, or typically. So I know that this is a much longer journey than that.
Right.
But you are programming athletes for multiple days. So the one-on-one sessions is literally the conversations you're having after they execute their program. I'm more like on the side of like where I dislike the one-on-ones is where you show up for 30 minutes and that's it. Like there's no connection afterwards. There's no what do you do the rest of the week? It's literally people just trying to make money and sending you out the door, and it's this regurgitation of just athletes.
That's not my program. They get assigned drill sets. They get assigned videos. They're required to send me video of them doing drills that I know that they're doing them. They're holding themselves accountable to doing them. I will critique those. That's my job during the day. I've got clients. Just a young man from Jackson. His mom just sent me 3 different videos of drills. Once I get done with that, once we get done today, I'll critique those. I'll send them back feedback and say, maybe this drill is working really well, or we might need to try a different drill. Not everybody buys in with sending me all the information. So come that test session that I have at the beginning of each month, we have to have difficult conversations. Why are we here? Why are we not getting better? Why have I assigned you things that you're not sending back to me? And the buy-in rate is pretty good. And then there's other people that just think they're going to get better with doing minimal things. That's where the difficult conversations have to play with. So for me, it's the accountability factor, but I want to know what they're doing on a weekly basis. So my one-on-one program is way different than just coming in and getting reps. I'm not just about getting reps. Every time we come into the cage, we're there to learn. My job is to critique them, to put them in a very uncomfortable environment, to challenge them to get better. The same way they're going to be challenged in a game situation. I'm not doing bland T work, bland flips, bland machine work, and then see you next week. Great job. I'm not there to make them feel good. I'm there to get them to understand that there's deficiencies in how they're moving, bat path direction, whatever, and we attack certain things. So my one-on-one program is way different than most people's one-on-one programs.
Yeah, and that's why we like to have you on the show, because if you've been following the show, that you've heard kind of the same message from Cody Massey, from Josh Cathcart. We don't want to build this robotic thing that you show up and it feels good, or it's reps babysitter. We like to use that term. It's got to be something to see the growth, which you talk about the development program. Realistically, when you're talking about having those tough conversations, we talked about it last week with Cody, is dependency. You know, when I see these kids going into these one-on-one lessons and they're just there for 30 minutes and there's no structure behind it or after it, that it's literally, that's all they do is depend on that coach to tell them how to do something. You know, a lot of times it's maybe their summer ball coach or something like that. And then you kind of have all of those pieces and never kind of stops. And so, you know, I don't like that path for an athlete, because we talked about return on investment. There really isn't one. I know that you're going to get better over that time, because I fell into that category before, because I didn't really know any better until I really started connecting with guys like you, and then just starting learning that, okay, well, what's the real process of getting kids better? Because I do like working with the average athlete that's a hardworking kid, because that's the kid that might surpass somebody down the road. It just has to go through the journey, right? So when I think about like ROI, I think about what you're putting together. I don't care that you're expensive. And or I don't know if you are or not. I don't know your rates, but if there is a value that's attached to that so much better than what I can get out of going to somebody once a week, I don't know how you couldn't buy into that.
Right.
If you truly want to be a high school varsity athlete, like I'm starting there because that's the first step, right? We have to take is being a varsity athlete. So what message do you have for, you know, athletes, parents, coaches of like even club ball owners? And you know, this is what I do too. I have club teams. I don't like the 12-week setup. You come in for 12 weeks and we run these generic drills. Your baseball coach should know how to do that. Like your team coach should know how to run drills and throwing. And if you don't, your head coach needs to talk to the director. The director needs to teach them or help build them a plan. I just had a conversation with one of my coaches last night. He goes, "Can you help me with hitting?" Absolutely. Right. You know what I mean? Because that's what I do. That's my job. That helps me develop your guys, which helps our organization out. But how do we, what message that we need to say that like you need to invest in your individual plan, because it has to be individual, right? It cannot be a robotic, you know, makeshift because it's easy and you use Chat GPT to create your 6-week program for you. And so how do we get the parents to buy into the what it takes to invest in your athlete and be the best that athlete can be? And I'm saying the best the athlete can be because you have no idea if he's going to make varsity baseball or beyond. So what do we give? What information can we give, you know, parents and athletes right now to invest in you into a plan program?
Right. Well, but first of all, you have to be transparent. And you have to be honest. You have to let them know to the parent, to the coach. Yes.
You as the instructor. Gotcha.
As the instructor, you have to have a lot of transparency, a lot of honesty, that there's no guarantee your child's going to get better in X number of weeks. There's no timetable for success. Some guys gravitate and they'll get better a little bit quicker. Other guys take a little bit longer. How you go about your process is how you're going to go about your success rate. So for me, you know, I don't put a timetable that I'm guaranteeing, because there are no guarantees. And that's the one thing that I have to let everybody know. Just because you're coming to me does not guarantee your child's going to get better. You know,
you might have a promise that you work real hard for them.
Absolutely. The promise is I'm going to be invested all the time. I will review as much video as you send me. I said, you know, after their assessment, their first homework assignment, because I'm a teacher, they're a student, is they're going to read a 19-page outline that I wrote. They're going to get tested on that outline. They're going to understand the nuts and bolts of why we're here. I send them a drill book with 25 particular drills that I put together, took time out to write illustrations, take pictures of my pretty face doing these drills. But beyond that is I am constantly searching for new work. I want people to be sustained, but I want them to be challenged, and I want them not to feel that we're going to go in and do the same bland drill every week. So I'm trying to search for variety as well. But what they also have to understand too is there's never, just a drill that's going to be the be all end all drill.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of a process, but there's no secret formula that I'm going to give you that's going to immediately make you better. It's a lot of trial and error involved. What can I do to find a way to stimulate these kids, to keep them invested and interested? And that's where the personal connection one-on-one with me is I'm invested as much as they're invested. And I think if you ask any of my clients, I care. You're not just a dollar sign to me. I appreciate that. It helps support my family. It helps build my, security as a homeowner, as a father, as a grandfather, but I want to give them as much as I possibly can to show my appreciation for that. And that's why my turnover rate is not very much. I have clients that have been in lessons with me for years. They're invested in that because they know it is a process, but they see growth. And when they don't see growth, now we have to have a conversation. Why are we not growing? Why are we not getting better? Why are you not proficiently moving your body correctly? Why are you not sustaining this? So you have to come back in, you have to tweak, you have to adjust. Like I said, it's not for everybody, but most everybody that comes to me on not only just a professional level, but a personal level. Mm-hmm. I like that cohesiveness. It's a family environment for me. I just feel connected like that. I've had many people want me to branch out and just do, a lot of group sessions or, Zoom calls and stuff. I'm not into that. I think there is value in that. But, I like the personal one-on-one connection to people. I like building relationships. So when I'm getting invited to weddings and baptisms and graduations, that means everything to me because not only did I have an impact in their life on the field, but they care about me off the field. And that's the gratifying thing for me.
Yeah.
I work, based on their financial structure. Some people pay me weekly. Some pay me, bi-weekly. Some pay me monthly. Some people have paid me yearly. I want to work with your financial setup. I don't want to turn away anybody that is in a situation that they can't pay for 4 weeks in advance. Just be honest with me. What do you need? How can I help you help your child? And we do that.
Yeah, you talked about transparency. It doesn't just come from our side as a coach to tell you what our plan is and what we want to do to get your athlete better. When you do get to that point where some struggles have happened, because the hard part, what I've noticed too, in having these conversations in programming, is when you have an assessment and you don't see growth. Let's say it's
right.
the second assessment or the
Sure.
third one. You have your
Sure.
initial and then the two after that.
Mm-hmm.
And we had growth on the first one because you naturally should, right? The first
Right.
one's probably the quickest one, but the second one, it wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
We're going through that now in some of our programming, and one of our parents said, "Well, it looks like they're not really getting any better when you put post the metrics in our. We use an app for all of our stuff, and so we communicate, we see it because we try to use it to help benefit each other and saying there's somebody here that let's get to there, and it's that competition thing, right? And we have an athlete that's kind of just leveled out for the last two testings. And the big question was, Mom said, "Well, what's happening?" I go, "What are they doing outside of here?"
Right.
They're showing up because they have to, because you're driving them here. And sometimes they miss on this day. Sometimes they miss on that day. It's not really a priority. It's just kind of, I'm going through the motions kind of thing. It's not going to work. It's no different than just a measly, whatever practice that you're not highly motivated for to get better. And so for me, it's like, well, that's a simple thing because we have you do this. We have you submit things to us because there has to be accountability. I don't like micromanaging,
right?
But when you're talking about selling the products that we do and you talk about our promise, we have to micromanage a little bit because
you absolutely have to micromanage.
You're
talking with youth athletes.
Yeah, you're not coming to me telling me that my son, you're not doing a job for my son, still this, still that, whatever. He still can't do this. No, your son's not working.
Well, and that's the first thing that I'll go is, how many videos have you sent me lately? What work have you put in? For a lot of the kids, I'll take their word on it. For some of the kids, I need to see their work because it holds them accountable to that. Also, networking with different high school baseball coaches that I network that are former players and students of mine, they know that I'm sending the data and the video to said high school baseball coach. That's a motivator in itself.
It better be a motivator, because you cannot lie, because now you're like now.
But when you put that many variables into play, you get that buy-in rate.
Right.
Not necessarily for the younger kids, but the buy-in rate from that is when I bring in their parents to see the assessment, because it's required. I want you there. And if you can't make it, we're going to have a conversation outside of the assessment.
That's going to be another tough one.
Exactly. And it's when they get a little bit nervous, when I test them on certain aspects, I send illustrations, I sent out illustrations 2 weeks ago on the pattern of movement for the load process. The sit, the lift, the coil, the stretch, everything, and then we have a little quiet, we have a little session. Okay, now I'm going to break this said player down. I want you to tell me each step of the process of the forward move, and you get a blank stare. And then all of a sudden the parents start to stare. Well, you didn't do your work, did you? So I had a young man come in yesterday for his assessment, moving, okay, but he's telling me he's struggling in live ABs, that they're having with his club team. I said, well, what's the problem? Well, I think it might be a timing issue. Well, I guess, well, when's the last time you send me any live AB video? Oh, I'm not a mind reader. I don't know what's going on. I can only tell you what's happening in the cage here, what I'm videoing on video. It could be a completely different issue. So he's like, well, I'm taking live ABs on Tuesday. I said, well, are you sending me live ABs? Yes, sir, I'm sending you live ABs. Now we can help you in that process. I'm not a mind reader. I can't see what's going on unless I see visual proof of, okay, this is why you're struggling. So I told parent yesterday, I need some backside. I want to see how he's syncing up the pitcher. I want an open side view. I want to see how he's moving, where he's at launch in relationship to everything else. Now we can formulate a game plan. Here's why you're not performing during your live ABs. 99% of the time, it's not really a timing issue. It's how they're loading.
Yeah.
So, I don't embrace excuses. I want a solution to a problem, but the communication has to be on both sides of the spectrum, not only with athlete, but with parent.
Yeah.
Where a lot of parents want to be on the outside looking in. That's not how I operate. I want the parents right there in the trenches with me, knowing that if they don't be a part of the process, they won't aid in a solution to child's problems.
I like that you take that risk. Maybe it's not a risk. It might be the wrong words. I'm the opposite. Says I don't like the parents. I used to. Want parents away from me because they would chime in on directions and hitting and stuff like that. That's the piece.
We don't do that in my sessions, because that's the first part of when your child is there. Your child is now Uncle Shane's. Yeah. It's not you that are instructing your child.
Uncle Shane.
We're going to have a problem if you are in the lesson participating during the instructional aspect of it. Now, when we watch video, when we talk in between, do you have any questions, concerns, or comments? They can ask those. They can talk about it. We'll find it, and we'll reach a common ground. But there's nobody outside the cage instructing their child. It's all happening from me inside the cage. I
think that where I like that you do this during your assessment process is I find that if you were to talk to the kid, and this is what I see, so, and you could tell me if this is what you saw before, this is why you choose to do what you do. I would have a conversation with an athlete, even a high school athlete, sure, and I would assume, right, which is no.
Yeah, we all know what assume means, and we're not talking about it on air.
What they would say to their parent,
right?
But they're sometimes so afraid to say to the parent the tough things, that the conversations, that they'll sugarcoat. Then the parent gets frustrated at the coach. Then we have to have all these conversations. I'm like, your son's, this, that, and the other. And then it becomes awkward after that. Mm-hmm. I think what you're doing is you're just saying, no, we're not going to have none of that. We're going to put the two together, because the tough conversation, the parent, and the part of that is now you get to put some of the blame now on the parent too, because the Absolutely. Parent is the one that still needs to say, did you get your work in? Because right. and not everybody is overly motivated all the time to make sure they get 300 swings a weekend, mm-hmm. whether they're sick or cold weather. Like, sure. Not today. Shane's in shorts. I should be
65, baby. Let's go.
And doors will be open tonight at the hitting zone, so come on up there. But it's just like, right before high school tryouts, every high school athlete should be outside today.
Sure.
every single one of them, playing catch, playing long toss, hitting, whatever the case may be. If they're on turf, getting some ground balls, like today's got to be that day, right?
Right.
And when I think about what we're doing, it's like I've already had this happen already recently with the group setting. I've had a parent go, "Hey, so and so." I go, "You already know this because I've connected the dots with you and said, hey, man, so and so is not coming in. Why aren't they coming in? They're telling me this, whatever." I said, "Do we need to get together and have a meeting?" Because I'm dealing with a senior in high school, so
Sure.
it's you would assume we wouldn't have all these issues, and they're like, hang on a minute, then I get the conversations back by the athlete, they start to follow up. And I don't like being that guy. I made the assumption. I still make these mistakes because
Sure.
it's been somebody I've been coaching for a long time. So I
Right.
feel like I could take it for granted, I think is what I did. And, in your case, it's like, we're all sitting down and going, where are we at?
Right.
The athlete's not showing up. And I think what happens more than anything, I care way more about my time now than the money that I make.
Right.
And I would assume that you're the same way.
Sure.
Because I don't think your rates are terrible.
No.
I think I've looked at them online, and especially what you just told me you give them. You probably actually should charge a heck of a lot more, but
I should, but I choose not to based on, the demographic that I'm in. There's some people that can't afford these high prices. I don't want to limit people and keep them from not being able to provide for their child, to give them some quality to help them be better.
yeah, they're not going to develop.
Absolutely.
So if we're asking about development, there's risks that we take. There's people that are going to be there for years. There's somebody that's going to pay you in full, and it'll can supplement some of the stress and,
Right.
and things. And that's what we do. I mean, we don't just look at somebody and say, here's a blanket statement, go figure it out. No, we don't want to do that because we don't want to turn people away from an opportunity. And trust me, it hurts at times,
Right.
with the time that you put in. But what's going to happen is down the road, that kid may be in a position where he's going to refer you 3 or 4 kids.
That's how I predicate my business.
It's got to be that way, right?
It
And
is.
so then next thing you know it, you ain't worried about it. Maybe you offer him a deal and say, hey, send me 4 kids, you can hit for free.
Right.
Whatever the case you may want to do. But at the end of the day, this is about developing athletes. This is what the focus has always been. And you work with teams. I know that you go down to SEMO and you
Right.
work with groups down there. I think you've expanded elsewhere. You obviously have your individuals, and then you have your individual plans within. To me, I think it's difficult to teach or to have individual plans amongst the team setting on without asking for that kind of setup payments and things like that.
Right.
Because there's 15 kids or in what you're doing, maybe 60 kids in that organization you're working with. I'm not writing 60 individual plans. I'm just not, unless it's part of the budget that you're paying me. When I go down there and teach, I'm teaching good information. The information is still kind of generic because it's for everybody. And the reason I brought that piece up is because I've been kind of getting trolled a little bit on the internet. And I saw a comment on somebody posted on yours the other day.
Yeah.
Those kids don't know what you're talking about.
They absolutely do know what I'm talking about.
At some point,
Yes.
even if it's not right away,
Right.
at some point, you're not just doing something one time and then it's over the next week. We
Absolutely.
talked about this, developing 9U
Right.
athletes.
Right.
We don't do these things one time.
Correct.
You have to do it multiple weeks. And so,
That's why I replied with a thumbs up.
Well, that's what I love
Very
about
good,
it.
Keyboard Warrior. Very good. But they don't know how the process works from me. They just assume, and we all know what that means once again,
Yeah. And
that
it's
I'm just throwing this out one time. This is something structurally that gets talked on all the time. I work more on their load and how they move than their actual swing because the load sets up the swing. So unless they can get to a consistent, good loaded launch position, they're not going to consistently find barrels. You equate that to pitchers who throw consistent strikes. It's all about a repeatable delivery. Athletes are bigger, stronger, and faster. Some athletes that don't have that don't throw as much juice. But can they command the strike zone and get outs? Absolutely. Some guys want to throw it through a brick wall. They can't throw a strike. So, so getting them to buy into every individual is a little bit different. You have a certain amount of athleticism. Some kids that I work with, not a lot of athleticism, but they still were productive at the plate because they followed a game plan. They followed an approach that worked for them individually. That's what it's all about.
that has to be an investment that you as a parent need to ask your coaches about it, because, we talked about it last week about being dependent on coaching. And, when you're hearing the mechanics, you're standing in the batter's box and you miss hit a baseball, and the first thing you're just like, oh, it was this, or it was that, I did this, I did
Right.
that. And it's like, I say it all the time. It's like, and I think it was Josh Cathcart said this, trust your eyes. You don't have to, instead of saying trust your hands, because you have to see it first. And
Right.
then,
Absolutely.
the way that that trickles down. But when I hear that message on development is not just your skill set. Like,
Right.
we have to develop the mind. We have to develop
Absolutely.
the IQ at hitting. I'll say it again. Pete Rose had 27 outs, plate appearances in a game for 27 outs, because he had not only his at bats, but he could learn from everybody else's bats, because they didn't have the technology that they had and the tendencies that they had. They had to actually learn them, chart them, write them down, do those kinds of fun things. And you watch the IQ of a hitter so very different from the 80s and 90s to what it is now. And now it's like this visual thing.
Right.
They're looking at pitch shapes and stuff like that, and I'm like, I never heard of that. My coach always would say, pick up spin, hit it backside.
Exactly.
And not even if it was up and I know I could pull the pitch. His thought process was see spin, hit it backside. It doesn't mean I was going to hit it that way. It doesn't mean I was going to hit it on the ground. I could hit it anywhere.
You're taking the element of compete out of a lot of players, because you're over informing them with all these different types of technologies and datas and game planning. And just networking with a lot of professional athletes, they don't, some athletes want that information. Most hitters don't want the information. It's all about being in the moment and competing in the box. Because once they start to think about certain aspects of it, and you have to guess a little bit at the big league level. You just have to. At the levels that I predominantly work at, there should not be any guesswork. It should be based on feel and movement and rhythm and timing, and compete with the at bat. But everybody wants immediate feedback after every swing. I don't give immediate feedback after every swing. If it's a compilation of swings or 7 or 8 that they think, then we're going to have a conversation about it. A lot of people want that over information. They want to be, okay, what I do on that swing? We're not going there. We're not going there after one swing. You just barreled up 5 out of 6 pitches, and you want to talk about the one you didn't barrel up. Let's talk about hitting a round ball with a round bat with a very short surface. It's not easy. But can you consistently compress and strike the ball hard? I don't care. It's going to look good sometimes. It's going to look ugly as sin at times. Was it a productive swing? Did it produce a decent result? Let's just be happy with that result. So many things about feel and this and yet, you're not going to feel what is going on when you're competing with a ball in flight. You're just not going to feel certain things. And that's what I'll probably get from the most. Well, I didn't feel what was happening. The only way you're going to feel it is to break it down and then put it together. The feel drills are the prep drills. They're the tee work, the dry work, the movement pattern work. I can't tell you what you're feeling when you're competing. I can see ball flight feedback. I can see the end result of what the swing was. If it's a good result, why are we talking about it?
Why are we talking about it? Why, how did we get to this? And because now what I feel like is I feel like we're on the same page, because I have these kind of overthinkers, things like that. And again,
Think
it
more
goes
and hit less. Empty mind, full bat.
Holy smokes. I know hitting is hard. I argue consistency's hard. That's the hard part for me to hitting, because I understand that how hard it is to hit, that my goal is to just try to get to a barrel, right? And so if I can get there,
Bat to ball skills are not taught on a good basis now. I want you to move well and compete and just find the barrel. That's the biggest thing that I'm trying to get, is to get them to understand that I need to put the barrel on the ball consistently.
It was so funny that when I think about all the technology that we have and how I grew up hitting, squash the bug, chop down the tree, or whatever routine was we had back then, I still go back to bat to ball skills.
Mm-hmm.
And I promise you, my coaches said more of that information to me. Find a way to barrel the baseball. That's all they ever told me.
Right.
Find a way to barrel the ball. And when I would find a way to barrel the ball, I would pull side in the air. I would hit the ball up the middle with a line drive, and I'd hit backside ground balls. And like on certain pitches, like
Sure.
in my cage sessions, I wouldn't
Right.
do this in the games. I don't think there's any glory going opposite field, but that's just me.
Mhm.
I'm also a big guy.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a Deadpool guy, by the way.
Let it rip, Tater Chip.
Yeah, Deadpool. Either way, whether you're talking Ryan Reynolds or hitting a ball left field, but like for me, it's like I sit more now, and I'm having these conversations on developing the mind inside the cage sessions, because like, coach, I'm having problems in game.
Mhm.
Well, what are you doing in game? He's well, like if I do this, and I'm like, whoa, like what's the count? What's
Right.
the situation? Like that's where I go with things.
Right.
And because what do you need to do to be productive for your team? If there's let's say there's nobody out and you have a runner at second base with a strike on you,
Mhm.
are you still looking to hit a double? Maybe, but the biggest percentage is I'm looking away and I'm trying to hit the ball right side.
Right.
And if he busts me in, I'm probably going to take it for strike 2. And for me, it's like I'm trying to develop an approach to my at bat before I walk up there, knowing what the
Mhm.
situation is. Guys literally will be staring at the dugout, not paying attention. They'll
Your
walk
at bat
up to the plate.
starts on deck. And if you're
Maybe
not
even
preparing,
before, right?
well, yeah, with pitcher tendencies and the game situation, stuff like that. But a lot of hitters just don't prepare themselves to step in the box ready to compete. I mean, there's a lot of outside distractions.
This is why I'm not really
They're
anti.
more worried about their oven mitt in the back of their shorts and their extra pair of batting gloves to make sure they look pretty in the box to prepare for what's going to really happen in the box.
I do like the extra batting gloves in the box, though.
Yeah, it's
At least I did it.
A
Well,
lot of 220 hitters with 4 pairs of batting gloves.
I used one pair for hitting, and I would swap them out for when I would steal bases. How many of you believe that?
Did you nail the batting gloves up on the wall like somebody from Major League did to
No.
count? Okay, exactly.
No, I didn't. I never had that. I always had one, I think, and then I would leave the blinker out because I always thought it was cool, so nobody would stare at my belly with how big my belly looked in my uniform. So I wanted someone to stare at the blinker that I had hanging out. It was always the left side because I always believed in left turns only.
There you
right?
go. NASCAR guy, attaboy.
No, it was because it's how we
Oh,
run the
okay.
bases.
All right. Left turn, so I like NASCAR.
I was never trying to go to the right back.
No. Yeah, you don't want to. Yeah, we
Yeah, it
don't want
was
to
the
make an
wrong
early
way,
exit.
wrong
Yeah.
directions. But I'm finding more success in getting people to self-organize or whatever you want to call it, problem solve. Finding solutions on their own. Because what I'm seeing is when you give this to the athlete, they're really developing their swing themselves. Like,
Right.
I know that we give them information. I know that we drill. I know that we have high level patterns and our movements
But
or all these things.
At
But
the end of the day, too, how much are you challenging them in that cage session, putting them in the same environment that they're going to be in a game? And
stress.
exactly. You have to stress these kids out.
It's we ask them to stress their muscles out to get
Mhm.
bigger, faster, stronger. We ask them to recover. Why wouldn't we expect the same thing as a hitter or a pitcher when we're doing our instruction?
Because most people want to just be comfortable. They want to feel great about it.
The game is extremely
That's what I'm
uncomfortable.
saying is where we are losing the whole point of emphasis on development is we are not preparing them for battle. We're making them feel good. We're making them feel great. There's a lot of people that just want to do that. Hey, see you next week. See you next week. I'm not that guy, and that's why, for some people it's not the right fit.
Club baseball, that's the feel I have right now for club baseball.
Mhm.
I'm not anti-club baseball. I'm very close to it right now.
Sure.
Because what I'm seeing is a lack of development getting into the high school levels. I don't know if it's volume of kids in an organization. I'm not picking on business models, but 12 weeks of sending one of your coaches in there making $30 an hour or whatever he's making
Right.
is not the solution to help these players become better. And I say that because I don't think an A-level team should be paying or doing the same things a major level team did or
Right.
a AAA level team.
Sure.
And I'm seeing that. I'm seeing teams charge the same amount for anybody that's of that age.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that.
Right.
And
Agree.
and
I agree to that.
I just, for me, it's like, what are we actually really doing to the community of baseball players? And I think we have some tremendous athletes here.
Agreed.
But that's all anybody ever cares about.
Right.
And that's not the majority.
Mm-hmm.
The majority is the kid that needs a whole lot of help with
Right.
direction. Back to your first word, or one of your first words on the show, structure.
Right.
When we started talking about development. If you do not have that structured plan, you do not have an individual growth plan.
Right.
And so how do we now mix in the club baseball to maybe get away from saying, we need all this 12 weeks because we have to pay all these coaches all this extra money so they're happy? Why don't we just say, why don't we develop these programs, which, again, at the end of the day, this may be taking away opportunities from me,
Mm-hmm.
but we need to develop these kids.
Right.
We need to get away from just these generic things that shove a average athlete that may or may not care because they're of the age the parent still makes the decisions. We need to develop.
Right.
We need to stress them out. We need to have pressures on
Right.
them. We need to, like my 9U team last night. My parents are learning because I am trying to create the freedom for the athletes. I want the athletes to be free. I want parents to stay away. Don't tell them how to hit. I don't care how they hit. I don't care that they yank their heads out yet. They're 9.
Right.
They have no idea how to have a mature conversation about
Sure.
hitting. You want me to give them a drill? What's the drill going to do? I can do walkthrough drills. All I'm just trying to do is get them to swing hard right now.
Right.
Because they're passive kids still.
Bat the ball. Right.
Bat to ball skills,
Sure.
correct? Last night, here was my instruction to my 9U team. Guys, I want you to watch the ball out of the hand. You're not allowed to swing, and I want you to tell me where it lands.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to point to it on the ground. Coach would throw it, ball would bounce in front, he'd throw it over here, maybe throw it at his feet, like trying to get him to move, just different things like that to keep the eyes on the ball the whole time because it just doesn't work. Kids started doing it. Well, the next round we did 2 of them, and then you got 3 swings. They did the 2, and then the 3 swings were like right there.
Right.
And all of a sudden the kids were like, yeah, I hit that one. I made Coach flinch because he was behind the screen, because he barreled the ball right at the middle. I go, how did you do that? He goes, well, I focused on the ball. I go, sweet.
Right.
Your swing is ugly.
That's
I didn't say that to the kid.
Well, no, but he's finding a barrel.
Where'd he hit it? Where you want him to hit
Exactly.
it, right back up the box, right?
That's success. That's achieving something different.
Why ask me to teach all these cool, fancy mechanics when they're not going to get it, when they can't do the basic things correct? We need to develop the mind to think for themselves.
And you look at the defensive side of the ball too, is I would run 15 minutes of just ground ball drill work, double play feeds and turns. And then for the next 25 minutes, I would put runners on base. You can turn a double play all day long, but can you turn a double play with a runner bearing down on you, with a stopwatch in hand, with a runner running down the first baseline? That's where you got to stress these guys out. And it was ugly as sin in practice, but guess what? We started turning double plays in a game. I don't care what happens on the practice field. Everything is predicated on what happens during the game. And that's all about development. You want to develop those fundamental skills, but if you're not stressing them after they understand the development or the fundamental skills, are they going to perform that?
It almost means nothing.
Exactly. It's the same thing we would do with our pickoffs, our first and third situations, our cutoffs and relays. Okay, now that we can do it proficiently here, let's see you perform it in a stressful environment. We don't do that enough. We rep, but we don't stress. So when they get into that situation in the game and they fail, who are they going to blame?
I'm going to ask you this because this is kind of off subject, on subject, talking about defense, practice routines. This is why I personally do not like roster sizes in our current settings for club baseball. 11, 12 players, assume 1 to 2 aren't making it. You have 9 to 10 athletes there. How do you run an efficient practice to develop the game IQ with a short roster? Or, if you only have 8 or 9 kids.
Agreed.
You already have 5 on the infield, or if you don't have the pitcher out there, well, you have 5 with the catcher. So you have 6 with the pitcher. Where's the other 3 go? You're going to make them run, so you're going to gas them out, and they're outfilders. So when do they get their opportunities?
Exactly.
Bases? Oh, they're exhausted by now, so their ball tracking skills are terrible. And development just doesn't stop with like the things like we're talking about. I think we should have 13, 14 kids on a team, even at maybe. I have 13 on my 9U team. My parents don't like it.
Well, it's because they don't want to compete.
I'm not there. I'm not there to win. I am not there to win right now.
Well, what it boils down to too is that a lot of teams go with 10 or 11 guys because they don't want to have difficult conversations with parents that come bracket play. Why is my son not playing? Everybody wants that opportunity, but they don't want to earn the opportunity to be on the field when it counts the most.
Yeah.
And that's what, once again, is they feel because they're writing a check to said club that they deserve to be on the field playing all the time. And that's where we're failing these kids.
They can go play adult baseball.
Exactly.
If they feel that,
in my opinion, that's where we're failing a lot of the kids. So a lot of coaches will keep 10 players on the roster. Well, what happens when somebody gets hurt? Now you're down to 9. Now I see this post on, social media looking for a couple players to guest play this weekend because we've had injuries. Well, if you carried 14 to begin with and you miss a couple, you're still playing with 12.
Yeah.
But once again, they want the roster size minimal. Because of the oversaturation of the market.
It's fair.
It's hard to find those second-tier guys that may not play as much because they might be a little bit more physically underdeveloped, but they can get to that. So once again, it boils down to the numbers game based on financial commitment and based on, they want to just have it given to them.
As a coach, I would tell you right now, I'd much rather run a practice with 18 kids
Absolutely
at the practice than 10. I'd rather manage rosters of 18 than 10.
When we would run practices when I was coaching, I would have 2 teams at the same time,
So that's-
just for said reason. It could be a lower level team with my higher level team. I'm not running out my higher level pitchers against their lower level hitters. My pitchers are throwing against my hit. We're flip flopping things, but we tried to keep it structurally around the same athletic ability. But we would do 2 teams at a time just for that fact that now we can put a lot of people in stressful environments to help them achieve more.
We did it at every level. I did it in high school.
Absolutely.
In the late 90s. I'm sure you did it in high school when you played and your coach was like, hey, JV, we need some guys because, 15 guys are on your team. We had a big enough roster that we could mostly use our varsity roster. But if we wanted to get JV baseball in, coach would say, okay, well, varsity pitchers against varsity hitters and JV defense.
Absolutely.
And we just flip-flop that, right? So, it's competitive in that way because that's what matters the most is the pitching and the hitting side. You don't want the large gap there. And I don't know why we miss that and why we think kids can't hit in games is because we don't do enough of the things on the side at live AB. Well, we try to do live ABs inside, but hitting inside's terrible.
It's awful.
Live ABs. I mean, it works, right? You get things done. It's claustrophobic. You can't see the field. You can't narrow down. You got this narrow focus on things. It's like you got to go wide to narrow when you're hitting.
Right.
And it's like I'm good. Like I don't even like hitting live inside. I never liked hitting live inside. I obviously liked hitting. So I would hit flips, T-work, stuff like that. But I don't even do machine work. Right. I'm not a big machine guy either because I always felt like it would change my timing because I'd get anxious and I had to learn how to get deal with that. But that's why the coach was like, Mitch, you have to hit off of a machine. Well, finally I would get it because I had to be stressed out. Right. I want people to embrace practicing with multiple teams, even multiple skill sets, maybe even younger, maybe even a little older, finding a routine, because at the end of the day, when you go out and you drill work for a while, your 20 minutes, like you said, 15 minutes, whatever it was, your dailies that you get done.
Right.
That's all stuff that you're teaching somebody to have routines for. And, when coach at the high school side says, hey, hitters go over here, I got to do this with the defense, and hitters have to go over to the cage and do cage work by themselves without a coach, them kids have no idea what to do.
None.
If you're teaching in your program, you probably have already taught every one of your kids a routine because their routines are done at home. They're scripted for them at home.
Absolutely.
And then they take and say, okay, well, coach gives you 20 minutes to hit. We'll take your 5 favorite drills because they're going to be 4 minutes each.
Right.
You know what I mean? That you're going to have to do plus cleanup. So we have to look at look at the high schools, go to your local high school, find out what they're doing, what those expectations are, and start building your plan there. You could start there because ultimately that's what you want to play, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you got to start with
absolutely.
High school
you got to set the bar at one level, and then once you get to that, I mean, you're going to raise the bar, but you got to get to the first bar before you can get to the second or the third bar.
Something's got to give in what we're doing, I think, in training our athletes. Or I know that I'm not talking about how you specifically train, but just as a blanket statement, and we need to do better for them. They do spend a lot of money, but I think it's our job as coaches to make sure we're prepared. We have too many coaches, probably why we're preparing our kids. We have too many players in situations that they shouldn't be in, and too many parents that think they should be in those because they want to wear a name across the chest. I still think that all of that's fine,
Right.
because it is your choice to make. But if you truly want an opportunity to get to the next level, I believe that you need to invest in your son or daughter
Absolutely.
and not the name across your chest.
Right.
And what that means, you probably need to go follow this guy on his socials. You probably need to come over and follow us, because we do things that try to prepare you. We put free information out there, everything from I'm starting nutrition,
Right.
because we're getting into high school season. And part of development is learning how to eat, not losing
Absolutely.
15 pounds
Right.
in a season because you don't know how to eat, or you're not energizing your body for, what the 7 innings is going to take.
And the recovery after the 7 innings that you play.
God almighty, it's if you want it, you've got to be dedicated. You have got to sacrifice. Yeah, it's part of the
Absolutely.
development
Yes.
process.
You
But
got to follow a plan.
the plan, the individual development plan. You have to go in and get assessed. You have to get assessed in whatever weeks that you wanted. Some are 8, some are 6, some are 4, some are monthly.
Right.
Depending on what I think the goals are. But
Sure.
if you don't have that listed, if you don't have your big board that's on the side of your bed, you're not going to chase anything.
Right.
And you're going to let your parents do all the talking, and they're just going to boost you up, and you're not going to amount to much, because your parents are usually full of it anyways, because they're one-sided. I don't mean that with disrespect.
None.
I was one-sided with mine too.
Absolutely.
I promise. She was also pretty good.
Mhm.
My other kids, my youngest didn't play. My son was not good at baseball. I'm not even talking. He was a great teammate though, which was fantastic. He was great for me. He's a great first base coach. So Braden, shout out to you for being my best first base coach. There's always a place for somebody on the field. But my final thing for the development process in today is parents. I think you need to take a deep dive look into what you want for your athlete, and then go. There's so much information out there right now for what our especially like our minor league guys, because they usually have a nice little following on their Instagrams and stuff like that. Just go watch a week of their Instagram right now, or leading up to spring training. Pitchers and catchers are today. Friday or today?
Some are Friday, some are today. Yeah, I think a lot of them are reporting on Friday.
That's the team, or everybody, right? I thought pitchers and catchers were today. I don't know. There's some guys already down there. It doesn't matter. But baseball has started, and just go look at what the investment of that somebody that makes a whole lot of money still has to do.
I'm a big fan of following Max Clark on his socials, because he is constantly posting content of what he's doing. Another guy, big league guy that I really enjoy watching him through his process is Alex Bregman.
Yeah.
They post a lot of stuff, but just their element of detail, but how they compete every single day is really cool to see that kind of transpire and play out.
And it's typically the competition is with themselves.
Absolutely.
And just their thought processes and just thinking through.
Well, and how they're challenging themselves with their machine work. They'll get into, some movement pattern work, some drill work, and then they go right into compete mode.
Yeah. I like that you brought up Alex Bregman, and hopefully those of you who are watching know who he is. And if you don't, again, go follow Alex Bregman too, because he's a fan, which is an awkward swing in theory. Like you probably wouldn't teach somebody how to swing like Alex Bregman. But when you watch some of his videos and the guys that he hits with, because you see him in different cages and working with different folks, and whatever the purpose may be, and he'll take a swing and he'll sit back and he'll have a conversation.
Right. Well, I was watching him and Pete Crow Armstrong yesterday preparing for the World Baseball Classic, and they were conversing in the cage and taking BP on the field, and it's just. It's really cool to see how they go about their side of it. And I just think people don't realize the amount of time they spend in preparation. They see the end result in the games on the highlight films, everything else. But if they really could see how much these athletes truly work, it would blow their mind. I think it would give them a totally different perspective on how the process, how it has to play out for them to achieve higher levels.
The development process would definitely change.
Absolutely. Well, there'd be a lot less people playing the game, because they're not willing to sacrifice that time, that the attention to detail, and that amount of work load that these guys put in. But then they'll complain about the millions of dollars they're making. Well, they earn a lot of that. They really do.
We pay for it. I'm happy to pay for it, because I do like going down. Well, I haven't been in a while, but I am excited about our Cardinals this year.
100%.
for different reasons. I don't care about the record. I want to see how
Likewise.
these guys grow.
I like the trajectory the organization is going in. They have a vision, they have a game plan, and they're going to hopefully stick to that. And I am perfectly fine with them winning 75 games this year. I'll go support them just because it's a fresh new perspective. There's a lot more transparency, and there is a clear and concise plan. This is what we're doing. This is how we're going to build from within. You on board or you not on board? For me, I haven't been on board in the last few years. I am 110% on board with the direction this organization is going in. And I'm excited about it. I got goosebumps underneath my sleeves right now.
You gave me goosebumps.
Just talking about it, just because of the honesty and the transparency and just the overall plan. I know what's going on now.
Isn't it weird that what you just said is what we need to be doing with our youth athletes?
100%.
And again, if you think that your kid's going to be a D1 kid at 10 years old, well, you need to chase the D1 stuff. You know, if you think you got a D1 kid in high school or a draft eligible guy, pay attention to what's going on and what they're doing. Because you said the plan, right?
Right.
We are doing this on purpose. We build these plans. We spend hours awake. We sleep 4 or 5 hours a night sometimes trying to make sure that we have the direction that your athlete can get better. The Cardinals system is developing, something that we have not had in the past. I've always been one that says in the major leagues, you shouldn't really develop anymore. You should already kind of be there. That's the old school, I think, TLR kind of vibe, you know, because he wanted the 26, 27-year-old kids, the guys that already knew kind of how to play the game because of their experiences already in the league or whatever. But he had a love for 30-year-old guys,
right?
You know, like because they were the maturity, the maturation process. They have 4 or 5 years.
It boils down to how patient is a manager with the process, you know. And I think he was just more comfortable with those veteran type players because he could motivate them. He could get a lot out of them. You know, when some people may have given up on him, he raised the bar for them.
Yeah,
and he held them to that. I mean, I think for me, I think Tommy Lasorda was very inspirational to me because he said there's 3 types of players. Those that make it happen, those that watch it happen, and those who wonder what happened. And that has stuck with me my entire life. I can either make it happen, watch it happen when somebody else goes to another instructor, or wonder what happens, why I'm not any longer in this business. I have nobody to blame but myself.
Man, that why is crushing.
Yes.
The middle is not so bad, but the why, I mean, it's all. Make it happen is the mentality. And I think that's why we probably get along is no matter how hard it is, we are going to try to find a way.
Right.
No matter what it is, it feels like in life, because that's not just a blanket statement for baseball.
And it's for life in general. And that's what really, you know, like I said, that's me being, you know, a fan of the game, not just the Cardinals. I would gravitate to certain people who really inspired me. Tommy Lasorda inspired me.
Well, Shohei Ohtani right now for me, and I'm sure he loves that over there. He's sitting over in that corner.
I'm sure he was excited that I mentioned Tommy Lasorda too.
Yeah, that's.
And my all-time favorite college baseball coach ever was a gentleman named Augie Garrido.
Man, dude,
Augie Garrido is the man.
His blow up.
Oh yeah,
when he's like, "I failed you.
Yes.
And I was like, it popped up the other day on my feed again. And
I have those videos saved in my phone, and I go back and you know, like I said, I read his book numerous times.
I would have ran through a brick wall full of dynamite to play for Augie. I probably would have been drafted too, because that means I was been pretty good.
Right.
I wasn't good enough to go to Texas, so be it. But yeah, Shane, thank you.
Yes, sir. My pleasure.
This will probably be the last time you'll actually see Shane on this year, because we're going to have a few guys on that'll be on air or on our call link for Prime Sports Midwest call in. I think it's Prime Sports Midwest for mine, maybe for all. But we're going to get started with our high school baseball stuff. So when I go back to talking about why you need to follow Youth Baseball Midwest, is one, you could see the episodes I did with him in the past. We always have good ones talking about stuff because Shane's the man. And we do live streaming of games on high school baseball. So if you want to see kind of what high school baseball is, and I'll be on some of these high school baseball events, and I will talk about the things that we talked about today, about kids being unprepared because they see too many curveballs and they want to say, well, why doesn't he throw me a fastball? It's because you can't hit a curveball, young man.
Absolutely.
And you just let the floater float instead of sending it 6 miles like you're
Mhm.
supposed to, right? If it's high, let it fly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Elevate and celebrate.
There you go. So make sure you follow Shane because he's got some good content out there. I love some of the comments that I see on there, and I just shake my head and I wait for Shane to give the thumbs up because then that's my moment that I can go in and troll the troller because I feel like bullying bullies is not a. I'm your Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
That's right.
I don't even know. Then wasn't that a comedy movie, the Prince of Thieves movie? Oh, Men in Tights. You will not find me in Men in Tights. Ooh. I'm too overweight for that. You'll see me in baggy clothes. Skinny jeans. I do like joggers. Anyways, you have yourself a great day. Follow Shane. Tune in next week. I got Josh back on next week. And then we'll do some shows with somebody that I'm not going to release that yet. But you got to go follow because we're going to start high school baseball soon. And I'm super jazzed that we will be outside, fresh air.
Yes.
I'll have sunscreen on in March.
Wearing shoes.
Probably not because it's usually like duck season weather.
Maybe not.
Early baseball. I don't know what it is about Missouri. It's 65 today. I guarantee opening weekend, Troy Classic or whatever that thing is called, it's going to be 38 degrees with mist in the air and cloudy and 70 mile an hour.
A lot of turf to play on that. We'll play.
Oh, we'll play. All right. Shane, I appreciate it, man. Thanks
My
for
pleasure.
coming on the show.
Thanks again for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
You make I get the most views with you on my show. That's why I always bring you on, is because
Appreciate that.
you do the best. Your following does the best. So
I'm nothing without them. So I appreciate I appreciate everything.
thank you. You guys have yourself a great day.